Well, now that take us to our last speaker, Mr. Cebulski. Mr. Cebulski is the Senior Vice President of Marvel Entertainment. Is it the real Marvel Entertainment as I know? Yeah. Yeah. After graduating this top university, he traveled to Japan. It's where he lived, studied, and worked for over 4 years with a constant focus on arts and manga and anime. In 2002, he joined Marvel Comics and engaged in coordinating the international art creators for such works as Avengers, Spider-Man, X-Men, Wolverines, and Fantastic Four. He is always on the hunt for opportunities for Marvels to expand their creative interests in new market. He also travels the planet looking for the best new artists. Today, he will be speaking to us on the world outside our window. Please welcome Mr. Reed to the floor with your big applause.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. If I wasn't nervous enough, I have to follow that. But yeah, my name is C.B.셰블스키, and I like to talk. So I'm going to try to keep this short and talk slow. And if I go a little fast, you can tell me to slow down. But the one thing I like to talk about more than anything is Marvel. And he said I started with Marvel in 2002. The truth is I started with Marvel when I was 5 years old, about that big. You can say that Marvel is in my DNA. It's in my blood. If you cut me, I bleed Marvel red. So today, I was trying to come up with a theme. Like Nick said, dialogue is very important. You want the people to remember something, leave them with a talking point. So I was trying to come up with some kind of saying or catchphrase that I felt would encompass what I am going to speak about today. So I came up with things like, oh, digital comics, the internet, it's like the Wild West, but we've heard that before. You know, or the internet, it's like spaghetti. You throw it against the wall and see what sticks, and those are the successes. And it didn't really work either, and then I was like, oh, maybe I'll quote the famous Kevin Costner movie, Field of Dreams. You know, if you build it, they will come. And that had already been used. So I looked back on Marvel's history. And since this is a presentation about Marvel and our digital performance, I figured, why not go with the famous words of Stan Lee, the world outside our window. Now, let me explain to you what that means back then and the way that I interpret it now as we get started. So back then, Marvel, the world outside your window, was a phrase that Stan came up with because he wanted the Marvel universe to reflect the real world. If you look at DC Comics, our rival, the stories are set in Gotham City and Metropolis, fake cities. The characters are gods who come from other planets or who are made from clay. They're not relatable. Stan wanted the Marvel Universe to be relatable. He wanted the person to open up a comic, and the stories were fantasy. They were superhero stories, but it was set in the real world, the world outside Stan's window, the world outside any reader's window. So we wanted to reflect the feelings, the thoughts of the people as well, and of the times. So, for example, going back, Captain America, in the 40s, the stories were set in World War II. In the 60s, Iron Man was reflected in the Vietnam War. You know, when the 9/11 tragedy happened, we rushed out a story, so the Marvel heroes were the first on the scene in the Twin Towers. So the Marvel Universe, the events are reflected in the real world, but also the personalities and the different people who read our comics. Marvel was the first company to have black superheroes. It was the first company to have gay superheroes. The first company to have Asian superheroes. So we want the world in the Marvel Universe to be reflected outside the window of whoever is reading one of our comics. Now, in this day and age, that window is something different. The world is getting smaller because the windows that people are looking out are the digital windows. They're looking at their screens on their computer. They're looking at their tablets. They're looking at their cell phones. So the younger generation now, the world outside their window is the world that is in front of them. They're viewing the world through the lens of whatever is projected back at them by the companies, the media companies. That's their interpretation. And because the window has changed, we've had to adapt to that. We've had to change our strategy, come up with a new digital strategy to keep that window familiar to the new generation who we need to bring up reading Marvel Comics, watching our films, watching our animation. So before I get a little too far into the digital strategy, I just wanted to give you a little bit of history about Marvel. Many people know Marvel from our films. I think first and foremost in this day and age, Marvel is identified by the films. But I just want to give you a little background about Marvel that you might not know about where we came from. So this year, Marvel's celebrating our 75th anniversary. We like to say we went from pulp to pop, being from pulp fiction, from just magazines that people read, to pop culture, to one of the best, most innovative media companies on the planet. Marvel didn't start out as Marvel Comics. Marvel started out as Timely Comics in the 30s. The first time we ever saw the phrase Marvel Comics, it was the name of one of the magazines in 1939. And if you look here, there's a character that resembles the Human Torch from the Fantastic Four. It actually is the Human Torch, but a different torch. So this was well before the Fantastic Four, but the character, the Human Torch, was created in 1939. The first Marvel superhero, so to speak. Then in 1941, we had Captain America. 1961, we had the Fantastic Four. This was the first family of Marvel, we call it. It was 4 heroes who came together to form a team. And then, in 1962, there was the comic that changed everything. Spider-Man. Spider-Man was not originally published as the comic book Spider-Man. It was published in a magazine or comic called Amazing Fantasy 15. And this story almost never came about. Stan Lee, who I think many of you know as the godfather of Marvel Comics, he created so many of the iconic characters you see on the films, and Stan appears in every Marvel movie as well. He had the idea to create Spider-Man, but the publisher at the time, Martin Goodman, said, no one's going to want to read a character about a bug. So Stan was so confident that the story that him and the artist Steve Ditko created, he said, I'm willing to bet my job on it. If we publish this and it's not successful, you can fire me. So Martin Goodman took the bet, and fortunately for all of us, Stan won the bet. Amazing Fantasy came out, it was a runaway hit, and the rest, as they say, is history. From 1962 on, it launched what was known as the Marvel Age. So you can see many of the heroes you see here in the original comics reflected, that now you see reflected in film. Fantastic Four, the Hulk, Daredevil. Strange Tales launched a character called Doctor Strange, who will be having a movie coming out in 2017. Thor, who you know from the Avengers themselves, Iron Man, and the X-Men. One second. Just some other more modern titles. If you've seen how Marvel has developed and grown over the years, these are some of the best-selling books of the last 20 years, featuring the heroes that you know and love. The Marvel Universe is constantly changing. The heroes adapt with the time. Again, that's reflecting the world outside your window. As the world changes, our heroes change with the world. Now, moving into digital comics, we'll come back to this. The #1 digital comic publisher in the world. Apologies to our friends at Down Kakao, but it's supposed to be the #1 English language digital comic publisher in the world. Marvel app offers over 4,000 downloadable comics. This slide's a little old. It's about 6,000 comics we have now available on the app. And we have a digital subscription service. It's like the Netflix for comics, so to speak, where you can pay a monthly fee and then read up to, and at this point, I think we have about 15,000 comics and trades. Trades is our term for the collection. But we'll get more to the digital comics in a minute. We'll go to the part that you guys all know and love, Marvel Studios. So what you might not know is that in the 90s, Marvel was bankrupt. And we rebuilt ourselves over the years to the point where we were able to start our own studio. Marvel used to license our movies out, as you might know. Spider-Man is with Sony, the X-Men is with Fox. But then we had the idea, as those movies were generating billions of dollars for other companies, why don't we produce our own films? We formed Marvel Studios. Nobody was sure it would work. We launched with what many people thought was a C-level character. So you have A, B, and then C. Iron Man. And no one was sure how it was going to do. Iron Man became a worldwide phenomenon, which led to the rest of the individual character movies that you've seen from Marvel. The Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, and Captain America. This was called Phase 1. It was a plan to, much like the heroes in the comics cross over into each other's movies, Kevin Feige, who is our producer, wanted to cross the superheroes in the films over into movies, and that led to the Avengers. Everyone here seen the Avengers? Yes, okay, thank you. The Avengers was the end of Phase 1. Then we got into Phase 2, Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, and then this year we had Captain America, the Winter Soldier, which was the biggest April opening weekend of all time, one of the top box offices of this year. And then came another one. It was a chance. Marvel said, you know, we're doing all our normal superheroes, everything's on Earth. Why don't we take the movies and show another side of the Marvel Universe, which was in space? So this summer we launched Guardians of the Galaxy. Again, we took a chance. That chance paid off. It was the biggest August of all time. It's actually the biggest movie of this year. And even people at Marvel, who worked at Marvel, did not know who the Guardians of the Galaxy were. Who? Wait, you're making a movie about a raccoon and a tree? But with heart, with humor, with good storytelling, it's really paid off for us. Oh, and a great soundtrack. Avengers: Age of Ultron, coming this summer. I'm sure, as many of you know, a large part of the movie will be set here in Seoul. As I said the other day, thank you for your patience when we blocked off streets and closed highways and we're filming here. But there's some great stuff that's going to be happening in Avengers: Age of Ultron in May. There's also another movie based on a bug coming called Ant-Man. So Ant-Man is going to be coming at the end of the summer. And it stars Michael Douglas and Paul Rudd. And then recently we did an unprecedented move. We would now start our entire movie slate for the next 4 years. So Marvel's plan is we're going to release 2 movies a year for the next 4 years. Some of the names might be familiar to you: Captain America, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers, but there's also a few new movies, like I mentioned, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel, the first female lead superhero in a movie, and The Inhumans, which is a property that was created in the Fantastic Four years ago. So this will be Phase 3. It's a very aggressive plan, but we've been doing okay so far. And movies isn't our only thing. I'll just quickly go through. We also do television. In the 70s and 80s, we licensed out a lot of our properties to different companies to produce the animation for us. But much like with the studio, we formed Marvel Animation and started producing our own animated series. Something like Ultimate Spider-Man, which you can see here on Tooniverse. There's a Marvel block in Korea where all the Marvel animation is shown. You have Ultimate Spider-Man, you have Avengers Assemble, and Hulk Agents of Smash. And due to the success of the film, soon we'll be launching a Guardians of the Galaxy animated series as well. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a live-action show that we produce as well with ABC. That's on TV here on OCN and CGV. And then, I don't know if you've heard about this here, but we're producing 5 new TV series with Netflix. Much like the Avengers model, which were the 4 main heroes, Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, Thor, coming together to form the Avengers, we're doing the same model on television. We're having Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage. And after they come out, there's going to be a 5th series called The Defenders, where they're all on the same team, much like the Avengers model. So that's just a little bit of what we're doing here. Now it's time to talk a little bit about digital media. Here's some of the places where you can find Marvel digital comics. So Marvel digital comics, anytime, anywhere. We have different apps, the Nook, iBooks, Kindle, Marvel Global. Wherever we can put out our content, we try to. Comixology. And, but the one thing that's very important to remember that we constantly keep in mind is the audience today does not just want repackaged material. Yes, a lot of these apps take the comics that we have printed in the past and transform them into digital format so you can read them on your tablet or on your phone. But Marvel has always prided itself on storytelling. Great characters, great creators equal great stories. And now there's a fourth component that you have to add, which is great characters, great creators, great technology equals good stories. The internet, as you've heard from many of the speakers, offers us a wide range of possibilities. And if we don't adapt, if we don't change, and we don't grow, the audience is not going to want the same thing they can get in print that they can get online. So we've had to change some of our strategies and come up with new ways to tell stories on the internet. And I have a couple of videos here just to show you a couple different ways that we're using the net to bring changes to digital comics. All right, so first is something we call infinite comics. Infinite comics are, well, you know what? Let me just show you a video and then I can explain it a little better after. You always got to have that up there, right?
So Ellie, what's the deal with these infinite comics, the ones exclusively available on the Marvel Comics app? I usually buy my comics at the store. How do you read an infinite comic?
Well, Daniel, you have a mobile device, right?
Yeah.
Can you swipe it?
Yeah.
Then just swipe it.
Really?
Really?
Wow, it's like...
The next stage of evolution in comics?
Yeah.
And it's just one swipe away.
We're going to leave that up there. The date's a little bit old. So the Infinite Comics were launched last year to much success. As you can see, the difference is that the reader controls the reading experience. Instead of just turning the page or moving the page, or as in your webtoons you scroll, here you swipe and each action is handled separately. So that requires a lot more work from the artist because he doesn't have to draw static panels. They have to draw every action separately as a separate panel, and then it's composited together so that the comic is almost a flawless reading experience that the reader controls. So you can, I don't have an example here, but as you saw, you can swipe and each action moves the story forward. There's also another thing that we've been experimenting with to much success. You might know AR, augmented reality. We've taken that to kind of a next level. One of the things that Marvel has been famous for from back in the days of Stan Lee is giving fans a peek behind the curtain, kind of the behind the scenes of the making of Marvel Comics. Stan was very big on community, creating the community before even, you know, the internet. Letters pages and columns and going to fan events and conventions. Fans felt like they knew the connection to not just the Marvel characters, but also the creators. So what we do with what we call AR, augmented reality, is we try to give the fans a look behind the making of the comic, give them more info. So if you buy the comic, there's also a digital component that, with an app that I'll show you right now. I think we're gonna get the Marvel thing again. There we go.
Marvel, the legendary house of ideas, presents Marvel AR. Welcome to the re-evolution of comics. Every week, step inside your favorite series like never before. Experience 3D action. See exclusive behind-the-scenes content featuring Marvel creators and editors. Get celebrity interviews.
But what if he whipped, banged, and shuffled? Since I was that big. I was a big Thor guy.
And inside access to Marvel like never before. This is your front row seat to the future. Marvel AR. Activate your universe.
So what AR does is it gives fans an enhanced reading experience. First and foremost, at Marvel, we like to consider ourselves storytellers. But the other aspect is we love to have fun. So this is the way for our editors to have fun with their books, to create online videos, to create extra content, to show the fans just how much fun they have making the comics, so they'll have equal amount of fun reading them. One of the things I did want to notice, the model for our digital comics is a little bit different than you find here in Korea. Here, the webtoons are usually offered free, and the creators or the fans can go and read them for free, and then when it comes time to later, when the volume is collected, that's when you're charged for it. In the United States, however, every digital comic, whether you buy it in print or you read it online, has the same price. The average comic book in the United States costs about $4. So what we do to encourage people to, when they buy the print version now is, if you go into the back page, there's something here where you can, oh, sorry. You want to see? Can you see it? All right. It's called a free digital copy. So if you peel it off, you're given a digital code. And if you put that code into the internet on marvel.com or with one of our partners, you get the comic digitally. So you get both. So you're actually getting kind of two comics for the price of one. So what a lot of people do is they'll buy the comic, they'll take the digital code, they'll read it online, and then the comic gets spread around to their friends. So it's a great way to also share community and for our comics to get into the hands of more people. And one other aspect I wanted to get into about our digital plan is one that I think that you all are very interested in. You know, as I said earlier, the world is becoming smaller thanks to the internet, and that audience is becoming bigger, and that audience is becoming much more global. In the past, like I said, Marvel had characters of all ilk. You know, black characters, Asian characters, but most of those characters were created by American writers, and sometimes they didn't feel authentic. Sometimes they were rather stereotypical. A character from Japan would be a ninja or a samurai. A character from Sweden would be a Viking. So they were very stereotypical. So what we've started doing with the direction of, in Korea from our friends here at Disney, have embraced localizing some of the content and some of the characters. So I think some of you may know the webtoons. We launched Avengers Electric Rain is an original webtoon series here on Daum. It comes out every Friday, and it's been doing quite well. The story is written and drawn by a Korean creator, Young-hoon Ko, and it features the Avengers coming to Seoul. So I don't want to spoil the story. You can go to Daum and read it. But here in Seoul, there is a K Stark building. So Tony Stark has set up a Stark office here. And they get involved in an adventure that brings the Avengers to Korea. The interesting thing about this story, which is continuing our theme of localization, is Young-hoon Ko has created two original Korean characters in the Marvel Universe. White Fox, who is the equivalent of almost Black Widow, but she has a past rooted in Korean history, the history of the nine-tailed fox, I think some of you all are familiar with, most of you probably. And she's playing a very active role in this story, helping the Avengers in Korea. Now, she has proven to be extremely popular, not just here in Korea, but to the fans around the world who are actually reading this for free. So, what I've been talking about this week is we have decided that White Fox will be joining the Marvel Universe in our English language comic books. So it'll be the first time that a Korean character, character from any country created by a character or creator from that country will be making their debut in the actual Marvel universe. Now, this has been very interesting for us because many other countries have now come and asked us, how come we can't have a Japanese character? How come we can't have a Chinese character? Why isn't there a character from Abu Dhabi, from the United Emirates? So we've been getting demands from all over the world to create new characters after people have seen that Young Hoon Ko has done it in Avengers Electric Reign. But we're taking things very slowly. Marvel characters you can't just create from just out of nowhere. There's a history and an understanding that comes with that. And Young Hoon was very integral and very familiar with Marvel and was able to create a character that fits the Marvel universe. It feels just like something that Stan or any of our creators back in the day would have created. And White Fox's origin story, which is a very Marvel-related origin story, will be coming in 3 weeks in episode 9. So, in closing, the world outside our window. The world outside our window is getting smaller. And when Stan envisioned the phrase, the world outside our window, he was sitting in his office in New York. And sometimes I have to ask myself, what would Stan think of it now? Would he ever have imagined that the world outside the window has gone global? And what's really happened is that the world outside the window has now become the world inside everybody's window. So thank you all for coming, and please stick around for question and answer.